Welcome back, friends. Today I got a huge highlight for you. This is an update on picks acquired the past 4 or 5 months, and what you're seeing on the board, most of which came from my dear friend Brian Bouchard, who sold me the remainder of his collection, which was really quite deep. Small in number, but very deep in terms of the rarity of the picks here. There are many, many one-of picks here, simply meaning only one of that particular pick is known to exist. We've got 84 picks on the board, pre-1900 through 1940, 15 different grip styles, 4 different materials: celluloid, fiberloid, tortoiseshell, and elephant ivory. There are over 24 different shapes. I want to go through some of those, briefly, the names of all those grip styles I said there were 15 of. First of all, we have a metal cup grip right here, and that's a patented pick, as you could see. Then we have the Gainer, wagon wheel, the Birdwise, wire loop, the Naxted, rubber plugs. Here we have whole grip right here. Whole grip here, as you could see as well. And we have the wire array, I call it. Unknown who made this wire array. We have another wire array here, not the same characteristics. So 2 different types of wire array. Then we have a semi-crescent grip, and this happens to be a felt crescent grip. Moving over here, we have corrugated, and we have a grommet grip right here. And this is an interesting pick because it has a screen, it has a cork, and on the other side, it has a cup grip that's depressed into the pick. Very unusual pick, American made, seen in 1940 catalog, U.S. catalog, but that's the only one of that particular one I have seen. Here we have a raised ivory or possibly real ivory cup grip as well. And we have various types of cork grips. We have the DA crescent grip. We have the Gibson serrated grip around the edge, estimated from 1915. We have the Lang double-sided rubber raised grip pick right here. We have the bizarre Wall saddle and harness, patented in 1918. 2 different pieces to that. This you wear on your finger, and then this pick attaches to it with the suction grip. Very elaborate, very impractical, but very beautiful in terms of its pedigree when it comes to vintage. We have the DA cushion grip right here with the actual real cushion. Seldom seen. And it's seldom seen to find this pick without the cushion. So for it to show up with a cushion is simply amazing. Down here we have a very rare corrugated tortoiseshell pick. And this is, while tortoiseshell isn't that rare, this particular tortoiseshell pick in a trapezoid is, because it's rarely seen. Only one of 2 I've ever seen right there. You'll notice I have notes for many of these to make it easier on you, actually. And I want to go through a few features. These are possibly challengers to the Cristoforo, but it's unknown because the Odell name could belong to Ira or Forrest. Ira was the father who started a music company in Boston, I believe it was, in 1880, and then Forrest came along, and he was his son, mandolin player, a very good one. Numerous recordings, well known among schooled mandolinists who study the history of mandolin. Moving down here, Barney Kessel, one of my favorite jazz artists. Another Barney Kessel. Alan Roos, jazz artist, played with Benny Goodman. Eddie Lang, featured in the Gibson catalog, 1930s. A really early George Barnes from the 1930s. As you could tell from those striations there, which even go back into the 20s. Moving over to our left again, we talked about these grip features here, but look at the different celluloids. You can see these crescent grips made by D'Andrea come in. And this would be 1930s, 1920s, 1930s, and here is the 1940s. We know the crescent grip has been around since the 20s. So this represents a nice period in different shapes of the crescent grip. These Gibson picks here, I have this labeled the first 351, but you could also see with these Martins going back to the 20s that this Martin here and these two Gibsons here, based on the celluloid and the style of the 351, that we're talking about some of the first 351s known to exist. Now I see a 351 in the Gibson catalog going back to 1924. Of course, DeAndrea claims that they were the first to make the 351, which may well be true. There could be some sharing of information, though, and DeAndrea could well have made them. But however, Gibson had their own plants at that time and were producing most of their own picks. DeAndrea would go on to make quite a few Gibson picks in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Down here we have the Red Arrow brand going back to 1927. Nice celluloids, different celluloids, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 different ones. These look like they're the same. Moving over to the Martin, since Martin is such a big name, we have variations. This one is hand-beveled. These two tumbled. So we're looking at 1920s, 1930, early 40s right there. Two nice vibratones. You can't see the vibratone name because they're impressed. Same with these two Brunos and the Red Arrows. Here's a gorgeous one of the number 17 shape from DeAndrea, early 1930s. And these are all French crayon mosaic celluloid, the most desirable mosaics that you could find in the pick world. And then we have these DeAndreas with the impressed logo. Even Tony and Marie, who retired from the company not long ago and started there in 65, picking up where his father Anthony and grandfather Luigi had left off. He was unaware of these. They knew they existed in catalogs, but they didn't know there were any actually picks made like that. But sure enough, there were. We have some nice Doros from the 20s right here. Here's a Nody Driscoll without the grommet right there. A nice Bluebird. We have Seagull. This is probably an 1899 Seagull here, 1900 Seagull. Very, very old picks. This Atlas here is not related to the Atlas that we've seen in other picks from France and represents a U.S. company, undoubtedly. The word pure picks here simply meaning that they have no printing on them whatsoever, but are gorgeous for their shape, style, and celluloid colors. Now, I could give you a whole bunch more information on this, but I'm afraid we have 2 more boards to look at. So I'm going to move this one out of the way and get to that right now. This one is pretty deep with several other countries in there, and it looks like it's not quite going to fit in. So we'll do a half at a time. Here's Germany right here. Look at these gorgeous propeller picks. And this one folds up much like a stiletto knife. Look at that. Just gorgeous. And first patented here in the U.S., but the Germans went on to create them as well. Soloist pick. You have numerous cup grips right here. EJA. Brian was the only one I knew that had the EJAs. And my good friend Max now has one, too. Some nice picks as far back as 1926. This propeller here in that really nice mottled dark amber and brown mottled celluloid, a non-slip. This has a crescent grip made of celluloid. Down here, U.K, Barrington, Rosetta. Bubble grips, early as 1910 and earlier. I mean, these are featured in French catalogs pre-1910. But I've given them an estimate of 1910 to 1925. So let me see if I could get the other side of the board in here for you to take a look at. And I could get at least part of it in, and I'll just move the other picks up. France, real early, 1912. Again, very early France, 1910, 1912 era. Some Bosons right here. Now I have some Japanese picks on the board. And this happens to be a Japanese propeller of the shape so large that no one ever made a propeller that large, only the Japanese. And here's a heart, which is very interesting, this particular heart, because it does have impressed corrugation on it. One more board to show you. Stay with me. We're probably going to have the same issue with it not getting on the board like the other one, and we do. But anyway, you could see this half here. Japan 1960s from the Herco 720 cabinet assortment. 2 pattern picks. This has a really nice wave to it, as you could see right there. Wow, it looks three-dimensional, but it's not. Japanese did a really good job with that celluloid. France, the Laskova 1980s. These are all made of bone. And moving over here, we have various U.S. picks, as you can see up here. And these are all pure picks because they have no printing on them. Really nice ice cube in the early 1940s tortoise variation. Check out these Selmers. Only Brian had those. Albert Harris's actually promoting the Selmer guitar, and here the Epiphone guitar. 2 nice Burt Whedons as early as the 1950s. Also sold into the 1960s and early 70s, those 2 genuine tortoiseshell. Now, you can't see it, and I'm going to turn a little sideways here, but we have some Russian picks, and don't come by those very often, but I've managed to pick up a few Russian picks recently, and I'm glad to have those in the collection. So I'm glad you could join me. Now I'm going to give you a few highlights and hold these picks up simply because you couldn't see the logo hardly in the earlier showing of these picks. There's a nice Gibson logo, impressed. Here's a nice Fiberloid, the Gibson, one of their oldest picks. And those old 351s I mentioned, let's take a look at that. Nice, impressed Gibson right there. Look at that. Take a look at the Red Arrow now. Some very sweet Red Arrow picks on the board here. Yeah, look at that. Stamped, impressed. The rarest type of pick is with logos are the impressed picks. And there you can see that one too. So I'll need to show you the Martin, since that's such a loved name. There's the Martin, impressed. And there we have that George Barnes I mentioned earlier. Remarkable guitar player and one of my favorites of all, Barney Kessel. Yes. All right, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you again. Take care for now. Bye-bye.